Hello participants, I welcome you to this last session of our week 6 for this course Metrics and Analytics of Marketing. This week we are totally concentrating on one topic, that is about predicting and combating customer churn. In today's session, as it is the last session of this topic, we will be basically discussing about the churn dashboard and the operating model. We have already understood that any insights that is derived from the analytics will be meaningless if it is not put into actions. At the same time, we must have a realization that the decision making body in an organization, all of them are not very well versed with the statistics and technical terms. For examples, the manager who is looking into some decisions related to a campaign, he or she might not be understanding what is called a logistic regression, what is called a random forest, what is called a decision tree. Only things that he or she needs is the set of actions that needs to be implemented, right. So, on this note, what we can say is that as there is always a gap between what is insight and what is actions, there has to be something in between, and possibly a dashboard can play an important role in bridging this gap, the gap between insights and actions. If we put everything in a dashboard, all the required information in a dashboard in some forms which is understandable to a layman, that in that case the managers can keep monitoring those dashboard, those metrics, and then based on that they can keep updating their plan of actions. In today's sessions, we will be mainly looking into a systematic process of how to put the metrics, how to put the values in a dashboard so that it can be directly put into action. First thing that we are going to understand is why an operating model matters. We need to understand that even strong churn analytics fail when there is no clear ownership for actions. If it is not decided who is going to run this marketing campaign, if it is not decided who is going to redesign the product, if it is not decided who is going to do the cost benefit analysis, if it is not decided who is going to take a decision on whether we need to do automation or not, then in that case there will be no action in place, only insights will be there in place, but those insights will be of no use. Second phenomenon is no weekly cadence for review and execution. As we know that today's market dynamics is totally volatile, uncertainty is there at every moment. So, in this kind of a dynamic business environment, if we do not constantly keep monitoring what is happening around, what is happening for our company, what is working against our company, why customers are churning from our company, or why customers are getting interested with our brand, if these insights are not being monitored constantly, in that case we cannot be in alignment with the market conditions. Next one is no system to convert the insights into interventions. If there is not a proper system in place, or if there is no deadline for converting the insights into implementation, if there is no defined approach to convert an insights into implementation, then in that case it is of no use. When we specially talk about retention, it improves only when the measurement and actions are linked. We need to understand the measurements, insights and actions have to go simultaneously. Means once we measure, from the measurement we have to immediately derive the insights, and from these insights we have to recommend the set of actions needs to be done in order to improve or optimize our business. One example that we can look into is a team sees high churn but cannot reduce it because no one owns the follow up. There is no allocation of responsibilities. There are a lot of ambiguity when it comes to responsibilities. So, this kind of ambiguous environment will lead to no action and probably no improvement in terms of optimization of the value for the organization. So, how we can actually systematize these actions? How we can systematize these insights to actions gap? We have to follow specific set of steps. As we have already said that we need to understand why customers are churning. We need to understand who are the customers likely to churn in the near future. We need to understand what are the underlying reasons behind customer churning. So, all these things will be in place. So, we will start with the stage of measurement of churn and the early risk signals. In one of our class, we have discussed about the different models, different signals and different validation methods to predict the customer churn, right. So, we need to concentrate on the early risk signals. First thing, measurement of churn and identifying the early risk signals, so that in the next steps we can look into the plan of actions. In order to quantify this previous step more, what we do, we will score the customers based on their probability of churn and then prioritize their segments, whether they belong to high net worth segment, what is their likelihood of staying with our company if an intervention is taken. So, all these things will be taken into considerations in terms of some quantitative scores. Then next one is, we will assign the actions to channels and teams. What actions needs to be taken up by which person, which manager is responsible for which action. Marketing campaign, who will initiate, product related, design related changes, who will do it, and we will define a time frame for each of these actions. Then we have to execute the interventions. Once the plan is in place, we have to execute with the defined timeline, right. Then once it is executed, now it is time for us to check whether whatever was expected out of this campaign, out of this intervention is actually doing its work or not. What we have to do? We have to do an impact measurement, and in the same process, in the same phase, we have to document the learning, what went right, what went wrong in implementing the interventions. So, all these things needs to be documented, so that we can actually learn from the present implementation phase and rectify if something is required in the next implementation phase. So, accordingly, based on our learning from this implementation phase, we will update the rules, we will update the playbooks, and ultimately we can also keep updating our models, right. So, in case we follow these systematic 6 steps, then in that case there will be little difference between these insights and actions, and probably over a period of time the customer churn rate will get reduced. But it is always easier said than done, because the managers may not understand the numbers very well. What they will understand is that set of actions and the justifications behind this set of actions, which will be backed by the numbers, right. Now, the first thing and most important thing that we need to do is the roles and ownership. So, which particular domain will own which kind of roles and what kind of responsibilities they are expected to carry with. When I talk about this marketing domain, what they should do when it comes to customer churn prediction and combating, it is the life cycle communication and campaigns. They basically talk about what kind of interventions needs to be done from the dimension of marketing, what should be the content in the campaign, to whom this campaign should be taken to, right. For example, some people are churning because there is a performance issue, right. In this case, probably we will initiate with a campaign which says that the performance can be leveraged by this kind of uses. Secondly, there will be a product team in place which will fix the journey issues that cause the churn. there is a possibility that customers will not 100% understand the use cases of this product, and probably they are unable to derive the 100% value or 100% of the possible benefits from the product. So, in that case there will be a value perception gap. So, that is why what the product team can do, product team can actually initiate some of the activities which will show the customers how the overall benefits associated with the product can be derived up to 100%, right. Then service and customer success. As we have understood, in multiple examples we have seen that customers churn because there are issues associated with the service resolution. That is why we talked about a concept called service recovery. If service recovery cannot be improved, in that case you cannot expect your customers who has lodged some grievances with your company, you cannot expect them to stay with you for a longer period of time. Basically, service and customer success is dependent on the complaint recovery, outreach and resolution. So, your service team has to be extremely proactive, they have to be made empowered so that they can, the front office team themselves can solve a lot of problem at their level only, which will reduce the resolution time. Then next, who will be there? There will be an analytics team who will look into what is the probability of a particular customers of churning. They will calculate it based on a established model which will be derived from your training data set. So, they are basically responsible for the scoring, they are responsible for putting the scores in the dashboard in terms of understandable language, and then they are also responsible for impact evaluation. If a particular initiative is taken, what is the cost associated with that initiative and what is the incremental value that can be attributed to this initiative. So, these calculations will be in place, and based on that the analytics team will recommend the business decision takers regarding the future set of actions. Next comes the finance team. Finance team will look into the value governance. Like we have said that your lifetime value, remaining value of a re-onboarded customer has to be more than the cost associated in re-onboarding the customer. It is same like the finance team will decide that whether your customer lifetime value should be at least 3 times of the customer acquisition cost. So, these things will be decided by the finance team. The finance team is also responsible for the return on investment approval. Though we have a calculation called break-even analysis, but there are minimum benchmark that is set by the finance team as well. Let us say the profit has to be minimum 30%, otherwise there is no point of starting with this initiative. And ultimately the finance team will ensure that there is a discipline in the budget. The budget is driven by the metrics. The budget is not about the gut feeling, it is backed by the anticipated numbers. Let us take an example. Product owns reducing onboarding drop-offs, right. Service owns the complaint closure time. So, let us say if we can see that there is a lot of drop-offs, there is a lot of churn during the very initial phase of the customer journey. For example, the customers are filling their KYC, but they are not actually subscribing to the applications. In that case, what we have to do, probably we have to reduce the time from customers' interest to actual first purchase. So, that will be a responsibility of the product team, so that what are the features, what are the data they will be taking as input in the initial phase, that they have to reduce. Similarly, if the complaint closure, if the complaint resolution time is high, in that case the service team has to be made accountable and responsible for reducing this complaint closure time. So, for each of this lacuna, first thing that you need to understand is, what is the underlying reason behind a customer churn. Once you understand that, then you have to give the responsibility to a particular team depending on the type of reason for which the customer is churning, and then they have to solve it. It cannot be undefined. It has to be allocated to a particular department, allocated to a particular team, and ultimately it has to be made accountable by an individual. Now, looking at the dashboard. So, there are certain checkpoints of a churn dashboard. So, dashboard should have overall churn and retention trend. What is the overall churn rate? That number has to be there. Otherwise, there will be no benchmark for comparison of our performance. So, that is why you need to look at, you need to put what is the overall churn rate and what is the overall retention trend. Then we have to go a bit deeper, we have to do the same metrics, we have to put the same metrics by segment and customer value band. If we do it segment wise, what is going to happen? We will be able to exactly locate which particular initiative is working and which particular intervention is not working. That is why to have a segment wise understanding regarding the customer churn is extremely important. One initiative, one interventions might work for your VIP customers, but the same intervention is not at all working for my basic customers. That is why it is important to bifurcate them segment wise. Then next one, we should have something called cohort retention curves. For each of this cohort, we will have the churn rate at different point of time. So, that for each of this cohort, we have to capture this churn rate at different point of time. The curves has to be put for each of this cohort. Then we need to have revenue impact. So, for a particular intervention, what is the revenue impact? Is it minus? Is it 0? Is it plus? That value has to be there. Once the value is there, the decision making body will be able to understand that this particular initiative, these interventions work better than others. They have to find out the loss and recovery. Then ultimately and most importantly, which is not only about the numbers but also about the qualitative analysis, is the top churn drivers. What are the churn drivers? You have to put in place, probably based on your empirical evidences. Is it the increase in price, or is it because of the competitive landscape, or is it because of the technology advancement, or is it because of let us say service resolutions delay. So, these things needs to be put in the dashboard, so that your set of actions are being guided by this list of drivers. Example that we can look into is that churn increased mainly in new users acquired from channel B, right. So, in that case, if we have this kind of an insight, we can actually exactly pinpoint what actions needs to be initiated and to whom this action should be applicable to. That will reduce our cost of interventions and that will probably improve the results. Now, we can look into one of the example dashboards layout. So, what will be contained in this dashboard? This is a typical kind of dashboard. So, first we will put the churn rate and the change versus the last period. What is the churn rate today, and is the churn rate increasing over last year, or it is on the decreasing phase? Ideally, it should be decreasing because probably we are improving in terms of preventing the churn for our customers. Over a period of time, your churn rate should decrease, because you will have a better understanding about the market, you are expected to have a better understanding of your customers. Then at risk customers count. What is the number of customers who are at high risk of churning in near future? So, that number has to be put in the dashboard. Then not only the numbers, we have to identify what is the level of transaction, what is the level of monetary value, what is the level of frequency at which they are, who are at the high risk zone of churning, how much they are spending, at what frequency they are spending. So, we will not only calculate the churn rate by individuals, we will also calculate the churn rate by revenue. Okay. Then interventions completed and impact. What are the interventions that we have already started and completed, and what was its impact? Whenever we are calculating the impact, we will look into the incremental value that is created for the business, which can be attributed to these interventions, right. So, we will always do a cost benefit analysis. What was the cost incurred and what is the incremental value that is derived, I mean considering the present value as well as the future possible anticipated values. Example is 10,000 customers at risk, estimated revenue at risk is very high and outreach coverage is low. What can be the insights? That we need to increase the outreach, and we might get deeper information regarding that who are these customers, are which segment do they belong to? Are they our VIP customers or they are our basic customers? So, if they are our VIP customers, what is the underlying reasons of possible churn? Is it because of, I mean, the product quality? Is it because of we are not matching in terms of the technological advancement that is happening in the industry? So, if this is so, there is no point of extending a discount to them. It is only the quality of the product that we need to improve. So, here we are putting some of the, I mean samples of a customer churn dashboard. So, here it is health score dashboard. What we are looking into is that what are the different metrics available is that health score distribution customers in low, medium and high risk tiers. So, you can have a kind of button options or drop down options where you can select for which particular segment you want to look the data for. Is it for the high risk customers, low risk customer or the medium risk customers? Fine. As you can see in this image is that on left hand side we are storing the usage decline, and on the right hand side we are looking into this the usage pattern over a period of time, right. So, these things gives a lot of insights to the managers even who do not understand statistics or let us say machine learning. Now, operational execution metrics. Operational execution metrics will not only contain the descriptive statistics, they will also contain the what is being done and what was its impact. Basically, it measures the execution quality. It will look into the outreach attempts and the completion rate. How many intervention has been planned and how many of them have been completed. It can also contain some metrics such as the contact rate and the response rate. How many responses are being contacted and what is the rate of response from this potential respondents. Then it will also put the time to resolution for service issues. Is it 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 5 day, and then cost per contact and cost per save. This is important because whenever we are doing some intervention, we need to do a break even analysis, we need to do a cost benefit analysis, right. So, both this metric has to be in place when it comes to operational execution, right. So, in this case we can see that on the upper side, on the top side we have this outreach and contact rates, we have this service related matrices, and on the bottom side we have this cost analysis, right. So, both these things has to be looked holistically. Example is, if the contact rate is low, improve the calling windows and use the alternative challenge. The next category of metrics that can be put under customer churn dashboard is the economic performance metrics. Basically, this matrix looks into the financial variables. It looks into the business values. So, one of the business value that we have discussed in the last classes, incremental steps compared to the baseline. What happens in absence of this intervention and what happens in presence of these interventions. Like we have seen in the last class that we could save 60 customers and each of the customers are giving a lifetime value of 3000. So, overall value that we are generating for the organization was 1,80,000 and the cost associated with the intervention was 1 lakh rupees. So, that comes under economics performance matrix. Then we also need to look into incremental profit from the steps. How many customers have been prevented from churning and what is the incremental profit from these customers. Then we may have in place this return on investment by the intervention type, by marketing campaign, by product knowledge distribution or by discount. So, all these initiatives, in terms of these initiatives, what are the incremental profit or value that is generated for the organization. That helps us a lot. For example, there can be a findings like, if it is about the VIP customer, it is not by the discount intervention, it is rather service level improvement intervention which is working. But on the other hand, let us say if we are working on a extremely price sensitive segment, the discount intervention is working much stronger than any other kind of interventions, right. Then retention uplift by segment and value band. Otherwise, we will not have a detailed understanding and probably we will not be, and there will be a attribution error, like whether the improvement in the product quality has resulted in retention or the discounts have resulted in retention. So, that attribution will always be there unless and until we do a segment wise analysis. Example is a call based intervention work only for high value customers. For low value, automation is a much better option because automation costs you much lesser, but a call that is made by a human being, it gives you a totally different level of experiences, but at the same time it is a costly affair. It can only be extended to high value customers because we understand that if we can retain these people, our future revenue stream will keep intact. Now, how can we forecast the churn impact? We can definitely forecast the churn. We can assign a probability to each of these individuals regarding churn, but it is difficult unless and until there is a cost benefit analysis in place to forecast the churn impact. What we can do is we can use the trends and risk scores to forecast it. First step we have to do in order to achieve this is expected churn next month. Please calculate the expected churn in the next month or next period. We can do the analysis on monthly basis or quarterly basis. So, first thing, what is the expected churn rate? Who are the people who are likely to churn? Then, what is the profile of these people? Let us say in terms of monetary value, in terms of frequency, overall we need to have a detailed understanding about what will be the loss in terms of our revenue or business value if these customers actually churn, right. Then we will calculate if we can initiate some interventions, then what will be the workload required for the outreach and support. How many people will be involved in order to prevent these customers or some portion of this to be churned customers. Then ultimately we also need to have a calculations regarding what is the overall budget of these interventions. Example, forecast shows high churn risk in the renewal month. So, customer success headcount is increased temporarily, right. So, basically forecasting the churn impact is also a cost benefit analysis based on the predicted values. Now we will look into this continuous improvement cycle for sustainable churn reduction. Remember, the customer churn reduction process is not a one time intervention. Rather, there has to be a system in place, there has to be a dashboard in place at which the managers can have look continuously, and then based on that they can keep updating their interventions. First thing that we need to do is we have to use the learnings to fix the root causes. Some of the examples can be improve the onboarding and first success experience. As we have said that there is a higher churn rate for many categories of product during the initial phase of the journey. So, I mean we have to improve the process of onboarding so that nobody stops or a lesser number of customers stops at the KYC level and first success experience. Next thing that we can do is that we can reduce or if possible nullify the payment friction. The payment failure has to be reduced, otherwise what is going to happen, if the payment is failed once, again second time if it is failed, then in that case that makes the customer frustrated, the experience is frustrating. Then third one is strengthen the service recovery. How can we achieve that? We must have a positive attitude, we must have an open mind to listen to the customer complaints. And next thing that we can do is that delegation of authority to our front office customer service executives. Then improve the product value and adoption. Let us say if you are increasing the price of the product, it has to be justified by value addition, and this value addition has to be clearly communicated, and this value addition should be aligning well with the evolving expectation of the customer base. Last is that reduce unnecessary discounting. Discount should only be extended when it is required, when it is applicable to that particular segment. I mean every time there is a churn, you keep on extending the discount, you are just squeezing your contribution margin without preventing your possible churn. Example, if churn is driven by feature confusion, product education and better UI reduce churn permanently, fine. So, these are the things that we need to keep in mind whenever we are working on a particular market. So, this is applicable to multiple kind of market, whether you are working on a service industry or on a product industry. Now, we will quickly look into a case study, subscription media. Dashboard insight shows that churn spike after a price increase, especially among the long tenure customers. So, if this is the case, if this is the context, then actions that can be initiated is protect the high value customers with the plan continuity options, give them an option for continuing the plan. Then add visible value features and communicate them clearly. If you are increasing the price, I mean there should be a clear communication that it is increased because of XYZ reasons. There is a value addition in terms of the XYZ features. Proactive messaging before the renewal. You increase the price, so that is why you are proactively messaging or proactively communicating with your customers that during this renewal period you have to pay this much of extra because of this additional features. If you do that, what will be the result? The churn spike reduces and the revenue stability improves. Now, let us quickly have a look at this monthly summary and key set of actions on the as directed by the churn dashboard. So, first thing is that you have to, the managers who are looking into churn and associated actions, they have to look in the churn trend and segments driving the change. Then they have to look into the main churn regions and the supporting evidence, whether the regions that is identified these are supported by logic or not. Then interventions executed and the incremental impact. In the past time, what were the interventions taken in order to reduce this type of churn, and what was the incremental value that was generated by this kind of interventions. We have to calculate the return on investment by program and next month plan, right. So, if we keep doing these things, then there will be a better chance of preventing the churn. So, I will conclude today's session with this sentence: churn becomes controllable when insights are converted into weekly actions, measured for incremental impact and improved through disciplined learning. This is a continuous process rather than one time activity. I will see you in the next class. Thank you.